And that is how you get out of a voluntary manslaughter charge. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Cover Band Confidential podcast, the podcast for cover band musicians and band leaders to learn how to rock more and suck less. Here in Atlanta, Georgia, I am Adam Johnson.
Here in Greensboro, North Carolina, I am Dan Ray.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So how's your week going otherwise, Dan?
Oh, not terrible. It's been kind of the same week as every week for the last many weeks. And so everything's feeling a little samey. But had a good takeout dinner from a place called Cow this night. Cow.
Yeah, you've talked about Cow
yes,
before.
I played there. It was...
it's not spelled correctly.
K-A-U is how it's spelled.
Yeah, that's totally wrong.
It's not right, but the food is very much right, so...
That's fine.
Yeah, it was good. How are you doing?
Doing okay. So we had we'll get into the actual week event type stuff. My week was kind of cruddy, for lack of a certain, explanation.
Yeah.
But talking about tonight, so I don't know if you know this, but this is like a new thing, but Taco Bell does an at-home taco bar setup.
Nice.
And so that's what we did because our kids are kind of picky eaters and we had a week.
Sure.
So for 20 some odd bucks, you get all the things you need to make one.
Hard to go wrong.
Or 12.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And it was great.
That's cool.
I would have spent more money getting takeout from a, more authentic Mexican restaurant, but I don't know if I would enjoy it any more than I did because Taco Bell just hits a spot.
It's hard to go wrong with Taco Bell. I had like a blue cheese steak sandwich thing that didn't travel home all that well, but it was delicious. It was I kind of ended up using a fork on it, but it was great.
Yeah. Very good. Well, it's important to support the local businesses you got and all of that jazz.
For sure.
Especially Taco Bell. All the bespoke artisanal Taco Bells that are local in your area.
That's right.
Anywho.
That's right. The one thing they're not doing for sure is taking all the same ingredients and using them in different ways.
Like recycling them for other dishes?
That's not a thing that they do there.
But why would they? It's not like they have like 12 really great ingredients that they can't multi-purpose stuff for.
Well, that's a point. I'm sliding our heads around so we're a little closer in the vertical.
Not a problem. I don't think that matters to anybody who's listening.
Fair.
So,
all right, cool.
And that seems to be the majority of our people.
True.
But here we are. Anywho, so as far as music goes, not a lot going on.
Not much. Should I share my gear? My gear trauma?
Yeah, we can do that because I've got some grievances to air right on the back of that.
Exactly.
We can just kind of make it all one thing.
Exactly. So I've been talking about how much I was excited about my Focusrite Scarlett 4i4 interface and my new Shure SM7B mic and all that stuff. And it's all just doing so great. And I was learning it and figuring it all out. And then yesterday, the Focusrite just stopped talking to the USB. Just stopped. Just it's not doing that anymore.
Right.
And I talked to them over their little chat on their website, and they said, yep, that's defective. We're RMAing it. So it's gone from me. I put on my mask and went to the FedEx store, and it's gone from here.
You just got it.
And I know. Well, how long does it take for a thing to be defective? Not long, it turns out.
I mean, as soon as it stops working, I suppose.
Pretty much. That's when you draw the line. And so
that's fair.
Yeah, that line got drawn, and it's going back. So I'm working on the old school USB mic that I don't know. I guess I probably still
launched 1,000 ships.
I did. It did like 97 episodes of a podcast.
Yeah.
So hard to go wrong.
So I, on the other hand, got I think all this stuff dialed in because this microphone is working, and like my air conditioning furnace thing is literally like 10 feet from me, and you can't hear it really.
True.
And it all seems to be doing it, and I can hear you.
Woohoo!
And that's a whole that wasn't happening before, so that part is great. Let's talk about things that aren't great. So in the way that we kind of started talking about what we're going to talk about this week is that on Tuesday, Dan found out that his interface had crapped out, and we got notification from the last two of our summer gigs that they were not happening.
Yeah.
So and on top of pile that on, at least for me personally, I was having a work day that was not great. So that was just kind of salt in an open wound at that point that I was, I was ready to kind of call it quits. And then Dan was like, "You think that's bad?" So,
I always like to pile on, you know.
so yeah, we started off this week in a situation where neither of us were in a terribly good spot. Um, but the whole point of what we want to talk about this week kind of revolves around acknowledging that situation to a certain degree and a couple of other things. Did you have any other stuff you wanted to talk about before we hop into, the meat of the episode?
If so, it'll come to me later.
It's fine. So basically, this was the week for me at least that I realized that my plans for the year are kind of done.
Yeah. Yep.
Like whatever vision of 2020 that I had for my business and for the bands and all of that, it's just kind of it's gone. Um and we had talked about this a couple weeks back when we were kind of going through processing this whole situation, that it's appropriate to mourn the reality of the situation. And I think it was easier for me to say, okay, well, that gig is postponed and this gig is whatever. But the two that we had coming up were two that I was really looking forward to. One of them was in Florida. Like
Mm.
we were gonna like travel down to a resort town and
Yeah.
play a big event
I remember you
for
talking
a
about
bunch
it.
of people.
Yeah.
That was going to be a big win for us. Something that we were really kind of excited about doing. And they hit us up and said, we can't. For them, it was kind of like what we talked about last week. They were looking at the fact that they can only be open up about 25% of their normal capacity,
Right.
running the numbers. And again, just to kind of throw it out there, like we were supposed to play there on a Tuesday night, which isn't necessarily the highest traffic night for people. So um, they just did the numbers and were looking at what the governments were doing, and they were just like, we can't make this work.
Right.
So for us, we have a job to do as business owners, and as more or less, if we're in charge of things, we're relationship managers, to accept those disappointments in a graceful way. Because I know they don't want to cancel the gig, and they know that I don't want them to cancel our gig because we don't get to do that gig. So there's a fine line and kind of something you need to be careful about with handling things gracefully. And so, I mean, my immediate response was totally get it, 100% understand your situation. We would love to be a part of anything you've got going on in the future. Please keep us in mind. Best of luck.
Yep.
Sayonara.
Yep. Yep. I sent one of those emails this week too, actually, for a date that we just hadn't said out loud was canceled yet, but there's no question. So the booker sent a very polite, gosh, we'd really love to, but we just can't. I was like, I don't say no more. So get it. In fact, if you told me it was like week after next, it's like if you told me it was going to happen, would have to work hard to even figure that out for myself. Yeah. Would I do it? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's complicated for sure because, for us, like in my area, there are people who are taking gigs,
Yeah.
like full band gigs
Yeah.
are starting this weekend.
Yeah.
And, they understand a couple of things, that they're going to have to be extra careful and that they're going to be playing to smaller crowds and all of that. But, for some, for people who are full timers, this is what they've got to do. So,
and I think it's worth saying, like, I think everyone has to assess the risk themselves. I'm not sure there is a right answer to it. I know what the right answer is for me, but I'm not saying that is the right answer for anyone. But for sure, if somebody said to me, "Hey, we'll have your band next week," we'd have to talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel the same way. If we got an offer sometime before June, I would have a very, very hard time.
It'd be tough.
For sure. And, we've said it before, like somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
And if you look at the situation, you feel like you can handle the situation and that you're willing to take on the risk, you deserve no ill will. You don't
totally
deserve judgment in any way.
Absolutely.
You're on the front lines, and we see it from both sides.
Yeah.
So, no, we wouldn't necessarily make that call. We're not, begrudging anybody who does.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the people who do that are going to learn some things that the rest of us will be better off for us
100%.
all knowing. So I appreciate the people who are going to take that on and be the ones to do that. That's I just hope they'll feed their wisdom back to us.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
So the majority of what I wanted to talk about today, this afternoon, wherever we're finding this, is there's a guy who I ran into through mutual friends on Facebook that is an active musician in the Nashville area. Younger guy, but like really driven and just very like there's something in him that I immediately latched onto. We kind of build up a correspondence and we were going back and forth, and the conversation kind of just turned with okay, I'm not really sure I want to play right now, but like, his solution was, well, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to practice. And a part of me was like, yeah, no, that's a great idea. You definitely should be doing that. And what he was playing was this crazy solo, and he's, incredibly talented and, can just melt everybody's faces off.
Totally.
But I was like, if you're looking at the reality of, okay, my summer is toast and my fall is probably going to be toast as well. What am I doing? What am I going to do with this?
Yep.
And so we just started going back and forth, and it really just kind of became a now what kind of conversation. So what are you doing with the time that you've got? What are you doing during this quote unquote downtime that you could be using to improve yourself, improve your processes, improve your band, improve all of these things that you can, that are 100% in your control, so that when you do come back, you're not missing a beat. You're actually stronger. You're actually better. You're actually leaner and meaner for your clients. So, the thing that we were kind of talking about was, okay, you can't be a lead singer. You're not a lead singer anymore. Now, what are you going to do with that energy? So that's going to be, that's the big question, really.
Yep, it is.
So there's a couple of angles that you could take that. Let's talk about business things. Let's talk about band things. Like, what are some things that you can think of, Dan, that you, the guys in the Lincolns, the people out there in podcast Topia or wherever the hell they're in, what can they do in order to do that, to improve themselves?
Well, I like your friend's idea. Woodshedding is a really powerful thing, and it's the only thing that gets us any better at anything. Sure. Is practice. Even though when you look at one of those people who melts faces, you're like, wow, he was clearly born with that. Nope. Practice. So there's just no beating that. And I know when I get in the throes of the heat of gigging, a few times a week or even just once a week, that's the first thing that goes. I get my practice in on stage, and that's what I get. And right now there's no stage. There's no stage at all. So I have learned a bunch of new tunes. I've learned a bunch of, I'm working on getting Axis Bold as Love.
Okay.
I'm holding myself to the standard of note for note Jimi Hendrix on Bold as Love.
Play on, player.
And I've got Little Wing essentially there. So, another one of his gorgeous, amazing ballad things. I'm fully in.
Yeah.
After that, I'm thinking about Voodoo Child.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're just, some kind of bucket list tunes that I'm spending some time shedding. That, they're the ones that those two are songs that in the past I've listened to and thought, God, there's no way I could ever do that.
Yeah.
And many, many times over the course of my gigging career, I've learned the songs that I thought I could never do, and I just do them now. So these are two that have been like that. So I'm taking that on. And then, the other thing that I am sort of reconsidering, and the live streaming work is giving me the chance to do it, is how I do branding and event graphics and things like that. I see some people in my market putting together really clever ads for Facebook events that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, those guys have been doing the same stuff for their live things forever. And me, I've been using the same sort of poster template, I don't know, for a year.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity to reconsider all of that, to rethink maybe not the big pieces of my branding, but certainly kind of how things get laid out. It's maybe time for a refresh. And I certainly have time to do all that. So, so those are the kind of things I'm thinking about. What about you?
Yeah. So, user 5 strings and things on Instagram said 2 things. He said, good time to prepare extra material for all situations.
For sure.
And then also a good time to sit down, watch old band performance videos and critique yourself and improve how the band is on stage as well.
Yeah,
so
I love doing that.
Much for that contribution.
That's one of those things that I say I love doing and then I really hate doing it, but
nobody likes it.
Yeah. But it's a good time for it. It's a good time for it.
Yeah. For our situation is kind of unique because we are band leaders and business owners, but also we are podcast hosts.
Yep.
And so there's a bit of a mix of personal branding that you've got to try to figure out. And I've been using this time to really dig into content creation for this particular project.
You have.
For those of you who follow us on Instagram, thank you very much for tuning in. The podcast is kind of the reason why the Instagram exists at all. And we're just trying to find a good way to kind of, mix those audiences. So, live streaming and recording the podcast as video content is kind of a part of that, and then cutting it down for social media. These are all different things that we're doing to basically, drive engagement, and then also trying stuff like going live on Instagram instead of Facebook. This is a time to innovate, try to test new things, figure out, do some trial and error, figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yep, we're experimenting. It's a great time for experimentation. So
on top of that kind of stuff, which I haven't been doing before, did record vocals and guitar for that cover project, which I just got my final 2 mixes in my email today. They sound awesome. Footage has gone to the editor to put the video together. I'm hoping that this time next week we have something to show for it.
Cool.
And then that project begat another invitation to do some vocals on another tribute project. Tyson Leslie, who is a guy based out of Nashville. I've got this crazy Nashville network of people now. And been wanting to interview him because he's got a very unique perspective. He's a Broadway player, but is doing those gigs on like 3 different instruments, which is insane.
Wow.
But he decided he wanted to do a tribute to a band called the Marvelous Three, which is very, very big in my little world, but not very well known outside of that. Their lead singer is a guy named Butch Walker, who went on to do a solo career and is a very prolific producer and has worked with Pink and Katy Perry and Panic at the Disco and Weezer and he produced Green Day's last record, but just like they were like a power pop trio in the late 90s, and they are the reason why I still do this. So I got invited to sing on that. Pretty stoked on that. Finally got all my gear lined up, and so for me it's stepping out in kind of like a different way. And I think the main push of the conversation I had with my friend Nick today was social media and marketing and personal branding and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So for I think my case and in Nick's case as well, it was like, what are you going to do to build your brand? Because the name of his band is the Misfit Toys. The Misfit Toys are not playing, and everybody's just kind of out there fending for himself. What are you going to do to raise your Nick stock and your Nick brand?
Right.
While you can't be on stage building business from that.
So. Yep. Yeah. So that's what spawned all of the snippet video posting. All of that came out of that.
No, the snippet posting thing came from something that I watched and read, I don't know, a year and a half ago. Gary Vaynerchuk's How to Crush It book, which is about social media marketing and personal branding. his whole concept, and this is something that you guys can utilize as well. There's no, blueprint or patent to this technique. For us, doing the podcast is creating content. Adding video to it adds a completely different dimension to that content. Well, in our case, we can take what he calls it parent content. So you and we sit in front of some microphones and we talk for 30 minutes to an hour once a week. But that's outside of that, besides you and I just kind of going back and forth on text and stuff, like there's not a lot of movement on this project.
Right.
So what recording the video allows us to do is it allows us to take the parent content and cut it down into smaller chunks of different content that we can then post to different platforms.
Child content?
Basically. Orphan content. And so for me, it's been a way to kind of put my money where my mouth is as far as like making moves and stuff. And it's working. That's all I can really say, is that taking clips of larger conversations, breaking them down into digestible bits and posting them on social media with an intriguing question pushes people to respond and engage.
Cool.
And so our numbers are up, and I'm going to continue to do it because at this point with my situation, I have the margin to break stuff down into smaller bits. And like, there's stuff that from like 2 episodes ago that I still haven't even posted yet. So I'm also building up kind of like a network or like a backlog where I can schedule and push stuff out.
That's right.
And
it is going to lean us toward a certain quippiness, a certain, I'm going to be tailoring my podcasting toward quotability.
Yeah. 30 to 60 second chunks.
Exactly. I got to be really wise in brief nuggets.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically all we really can do. Otherwise, I'm still taking like 2-minute things and breaking them down into like 30, 45 second chunks because we're not that.
We're not that. So we got to tighten it up. That's what you're saying.
Brevity is a skill that we really could afford to take on.
Yeah.
5 Strengths Things popped back on. He said, any ideas of how to get out of the kind of rut where you're designing the same posters with the same content designs and getting out of that box? I think the answer to that is to look around, see what your competition is doing. And again, your bands in your market are not your competition. They are the tide that helps you rise higher.
Always.
Don't look at people like they're taking business away from you, because in reality, they are helping you. Abundance mindset. We're all about it.
That's right. Also, the other thing that I did is I started looking around on the internets for design tools. I looked at Canva. I looked at Poster on My Wall. I looked at a bunch of things that have sort of pre-baked template things. Not that I'm advising using those necessarily, although I have some in the past that worked pretty okay. But you'll get a lot of good ideas from there. You'll get design concepts and color schemes and just prompts. It's like if you want to be a writer, you got to read a lot.
Yeah.
Sort of like that. If you're going to be a maker, like a designer, you got to look at a lot of design. You got to consume a lot, so that you have a vocabulary to work from.
Yeah. There's a guy I follow who's on LinkedIn that was talking about like a T, it was like a T diagram. And the whole point is that you want to be heavily integrated in one particular column and not necessarily like all the way across, because it makes you a jack of all trades and you're not fully usable on any one of them in particular. And I was thinking like, yeah, that sounds great when you've got a budget. Right now we are the social media director and the marketing director and the, creative director. We're all of those things all at once. But I mean, it's still a good idea. Like, you have guys like Mike Schulte who really are great at social media engagement. So that's what he does in his band. That is like his column that he works. So some of us don't have that. Some of us do, or some of us could, but people haven't stepped up, or we haven't delegated and that kind of thing. So.
Well, and I think it's about that T-shaped skill set concept comes from Agile. comes from
Yeah.
software development, right? And the idea is
Sure.
you're deep in one area, and then you have some exposure and experience to a lot of other things. And that's not a skill set that anybody has by default. You actually have to build a T-shaped skill set.
Yeah.
So what that
Totally.
means is you got to dig in on things that are outside your wheelhouse. You got to dig in on things that you think you can't do, or think you would acknowledge you have no experience at. And you don't have to become expert at them. You just have to become conversant, right? You just have to become able to hang in the thing. And certainly there are people whose skill set goes deeper, and you want to rely on those people and lean on them, but you also want to be competent-ish on your own.
Yeah. Or gain information from them.
Totally.
In order to, continue to grow.
That's right.
The other thing, so I was listening to a specific podcast today. I went for a run.
What?
I'll tell you that goes back to something a little bit later. And it was Finn McKenty, this punk rock MBA guy, was interviewing another business owner, and he was saying that like his general approach to all things, and a way that like you should handle your general like, and this is like a business thing, but this is also just kind of like a general like mindset kind of thing, is that he takes what he calls the Kinko's approach to talking with other business people and clients and that kind of thing, which is the yes here's how kind of mindset. I feel like a lot of us are kind of like in the no we do this, no we do that, like where we need to be the yes here's how. So taking that idea and putting it towards your goals and kind of like what you want to accomplish, asking the big questions. Can my band do this? Can we add this component? Can we increase the quality of our live show? Can we increase the production quality of our live show? The answer should be yes, here's how, as opposed to sitting there and going, well, we don't have the budget and we don't have this and I need this much and these people need to change that and change it upstairs. You don't have to do that. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to like clean house, fire a bunch of people or whatever. Like just change your mindset and look at look at what you have in front of you as an opportunity, and not, because like I said, yes, Tuesday I was ready to just crawl into bed because my day was shot, my year was shot, my summer was shot. Like I just wasn't, I was ready to just like call it a day and be done with it. But, you got to get up the next day and you've got to figure out what you're going to do with that energy.
For sure.
Let's see. Can you, Us the Bear wanted you to repeat the name of the sites and apps and stuff that you were looking at for design.
So one that I like is Canva, Canva, and the other is called postermywall.com. And they both have sort of templates for, I like Canva because it's got templates and pre-sized templates for various different sorts of things, a Facebook post and a Facebook event cover and things like that, an Instagram post. And I like Poster My Wall because it's posters. It's either 8x11 or 8x14, I think. But it's a lot of different styles and sizes and, I think just those two sizes. I could be wrong. But a lot of different layouts and designs and sort of inspiring things. Yeah. If you look at them with an eye toward being inspired by design, you will be.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, and you were making kind of a good point that like, just use that as like a jumping off point. Like, hey, this is interesting. Let's see. Let me do my spin on this.
Yeah. If you go there hoping to find the template that your entire branding will be based on, you'll probably be disappointed. But as a jumping off point, there's a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah. Very cool. So yeah, the thing that I keep not jumping out, like the thing that I keep mentioning, and this is again me holding myself accountable to a certain degree, is that we keep talking about Ableton and like Ableton, like implementing Ableton and all of that. And I think that might be the thing that I'm going to try and do with this downtime, is to migrate all of our show to Ableton Live.
And what did that get you? What's the point of that?
It would give us a bit more. Well, it give us a couple of things. It would give us the ability to add additional components to our show. So it can manage samples. It can manage plugins. So if I wanted to have live vocal effects, you could do that. Or if I wanted to use like a keytar and it could control the samples that I was playing, or
Cool.
we could set it up where we could program the helixes to do all of their effects and patch changes automatically with MIDI.
Yeah, good.
Not have to have floorboards. You could add lighting cues. You can add video cues. Like it's basically, it's a way of building the brain behind a higher level production for your band.
Cool.
And it can start very basically, with, you can use it just for clicks. You can use it to add lighting cues. Maybe you've got a kick drum or a light up. Maybe you got a couple of Chauvet bars, whatever. You can hook those up via DMX, and they can, do program changes along with the beat of the music.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of things. But it is just kind of like, to me, that feels like a level up.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say Logic 10.5 just came out, and it is hot fire. For those of you who are in production, I downloaded it and was completely blown away. I'm looking forward to actually getting to like tracking it. Haven't been able to do that yet.
It does like live looping now, and
it does have that kind of Ableton kind of feel for production. And I was able to put together like the super cool chill wave kind of beat within like 10-15 minutes, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
nice. I'm having kind of the similar thing about Final Cut Pro.
Yeah.
Because I've been taking a lot of video, and I've been taking a lot of Final Cut can now do 3D video. So I've been taking a lot of 360 with my 360 cameras and trying to figure out how to have a good workflow for turning that into something useful. And so I'm in the same boat. New tool, ought to be using it.
Yeah, I had that I had that situation a couple of months back when I decided that we were going to start doing more YouTube content. So I've been in Final Cut a lot. It's a big chunk of my day after we get this video put up online, is going through and finding the good bits and creating a new project and adding the little image macro and exporting it and all of that stuff. So
yeah,
I know exactly what that feels like. So if you ever have questions, just let me know.
I probably will. I mean, I haven't I downloaded the demo.
Yep.
And it has expired. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, Final Cut was the last free bit of software Apple gave me. But the Logic Pro deal, that brand new version, is available for a 90-day free trial. And when I downloaded the original trial and then I downloaded it again, it reset my 90 days.
Sweet.
So
sweet.
I have even more time to mess around with it.
There you go.
Big thanks to everybody for tuning in live. We're just having ourselves a fun little conversation about what we can do with all of this downtime. So for me, I think Ableton is kind of the next frontier. Building the content and then being a singing person that does creative projects.
Yeah.
Which has been it's been a while since I've been able to do that or had the desire or the demand,
Yeah. Right.
As far as market goes,
right.
the demand wasn't really there. So
yeah. Yeah. Well, we thought the demand was on stage. Little did we know.
Yep. It's been cool though, because it has allowed people to kind of shift focus. You and I have talked about on multiple occasions that one of the things that we kind of realized that we like in this process was the band business branding building process. That being, spinning up a project or opening, creating a company or doing that. There is just as much creativity in that as there are in many other, what we would consider creative endeavors.
Absolutely.
And it's something that I've really found that I really enjoy. And, separating that from music, I'm sure it's possible. Haven't quite figured that part out yet.
Yeah, but, there's nothing else that I've invested as much, time in to have skills
time,
at.
money, resources.
Yeah.
Sacrifice relationships.
Right.
All of that stuff.
On that note.
Yeah. Well, I this has just kind of been a week where I have, I guess, dug myself out a little bit since, we kind of cratered with that. That was also the day I decided, I was like, you haven't really weighed yourself since this whole thing started.
Yeah.
You've been kind of treating your body like a landfill for alcoholics.
Yeah, I've been
So I got
self-medicating quite heavily.
so I got on scale and got a number that I was not really pleased with. And so another thing that I did was I decided that I was going to stop doing that. For me, that looked like signing up for Noom.
Yes.
For those of you who are podcast listeners, they have lots of ads about and that kind of thing. Outside of it being just like a calorie in, calorie out kind of app, there are definitely apps that do that. Their angle is that there's a cognitive behavioral component to it.
Yeah. And it's good.
So
I did it. I did it a few months ago. It was really helpful. It was actually really helpful.
Did you do like a long-term plan? Did you do like month to month?
No, I did the whatever it is, the first 4 month.
Yeah.
Something.
I think that's where I'm at. I've been doing the things. I've been charting my progress and hitting my goals and reading the things, and I'm down 4 pounds since I started.
Perfect.
I definitely have a goal in mind, and it's definitely less than where I started this whole process.
Good.
But it just kind of got to the point where it was like, okay, you feel terrible. Like, I've been trying to do this yoga, and like you're doing these poses, and like your gut is like hanging out. You're like, I don't think that's what these guys had in mind when they designed this pose. Probably need to do something about that. So, it's one of those things where it's like doing this will help me do other things, and
sure,
it's a good thing to do for myself.
Sure.
So yeah.
I also want to just note that one of our very first conversations, as we sort of saw the writing on the wall about all this, was about what we're going to use this time for.
Yeah.
And how we were gonna buckle down and be better humans at the end of it, and learn and study and grow. And it's taken us a few weeks, I think, to circle back to that, but here we are, and better late than never.
But we came around.
Yeah, and
we're coming around.
What is
or we're thinking about coming around.
The second best time to plant the tree is today.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, the first best one
was like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Second best time is today.
Second best is today. 100%.
So there you go.
So, I don't want this to be some like namby-pamby, touchy-feely, like find yourself, whatever, but like there are practical things that you could be doing.
Totally.
And it doesn't have to be, convert your entire show over to Ableton Live. It could be something as simple as I'm going to get up and walk, or I'm going to get up and read, or I'm going to
learn some Hendrix.
Drinking. Yeah, I'm going to learn some Hendrix. I'm going to stop drinking soda, or I'm going to stop drinking soda after 8, or
vodka after 8.
More water, less this, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Find one thing in your day that you just secretly kind of just drives you nuts, and change it. And then see how you feel.
Yeah.
And then see if maybe compounding that by doing different things and adding different things makes you feel better. I mean, what else are you going to do? I mean, really?
You've already watched the show about the tiger guy, so
yeah, you watched Tiger King. You've plowed through Hunters and a couple of other shows. You might as well. Speaking of which, we're wrapping up Hollywood, which is on Netflix.
Is that good?
Great. Yeah, it's Ryan Murphy, and
hard to go wrong.
I'm a Glee guy, so Darren Criss is in it. It was kind of an easy sell for me, but it is truly a fantastic show.
You know what? I have been binge watching Superstore.
Okay, I have never got into it.
It's Office at Walmart.
Yeah,
but it's well done. I'm enjoying it.
Good.
Yeah.
I know one of our other podcaster friends, Henry Zabrowski from Last Podcast on the Left, has done some Superstore cameos.
Oh, really?
Huh. Yeah. Some of the newer stuff. I was just hearing it on recent episodes.
That's cool.
I was a huge fan of his work in Your Pretty Faces Going to Hell. Have you ever seen that?
No.
It's on Cartoon Network. The whole idea is that hell is basically like The Office. And so like everybody in hell wears like yellow golf shirts and khaki pants, and they work in like cubicles and like basically it's just like living in an office. It's a metaphor.
Makes
I've
sense to
been told.
me.
But man, I'd sure like to sit in a cubicle.
What I
If it
wouldn't
gave
give.
me just 10, 15 minutes of quiet.
Yeah. You
we're
know what?
not talking about.
My desk at the office is next to the window. I got this like
Yeah.
floor to ceiling window I can look out.
I've got a window right by my desk at home. It's just that it's adjacent to my kids
Right.
all the time,
Right.
every waking moment.
Right. Right.
Anyway, well, I think that was pretty good.
I do too.
You know, we always tend to surprise ourselves. We go in and we're like, I don't know.
What are we going to say?
So, couple of things. If you are still listening, thank you very much for tuning in. Things that you can do to help us. You can review us on the podcast platform of your choice. The more reviews we have, the higher those. The more reviews we have, the higher rating those things are. The higher we show up in search ability and recommendations, which helps us a great deal. If you want to help us out in other ways, you can support us on Patreon, and there'll be links to all of those things at the end of our show. If you have a question, please hit us up, coverbandconfidential@gmail.com, DM us on any of our social media platforms. I had a lovely conversation with Doug McPherson the other day, who listened to the live stream that I posted yesterday on our YouTube channel. There was just kind of like this is what this could be like. And he was asking about some of my voice live settings and that kind of thing. So we are shockingly available if you have any sort of questions or queries. So we highly recommend you hit us up, that kind of stuff. Any parting words, anything you'd like to add today, Dan?
Along with all of the self-betterment stuff we talked about, also be kind to yourself.
Oh, yes.
Give yourself room to go through
what
you're
going through. If you have a bad day, let that go. We're all entitled to bad days. Like I said, my bad day was Tuesday, and I for sure felt sorry for myself, and probably had an extra bourbon that I didn't necessarily need. I did all of those things.
There you go.
It's just what you do the next day.
There you go. Exactly.
Try not to dwell on that stuff.
Exactly.
Move on.
Exactly.
Shut yourself off.
Exactly.
Do the things.
There you go.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We are very appreciative of your support. Hit us up on all of the channels like we mentioned before. But that's going to do it for this week. From Atlanta, Georgia, I am Adam Johnson.
From Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
You've been listening to the Cover Band Confidential Podcast, episode 103. Have a good week.
Thank you so much for tuning into our podcast. If you want to help us, be sure to share us with your friends, follow us on social media, and if you haven't already, please leave a review for us on the podcast platform of your choice. Facebook.com/CoverbandConfidential, Instagram @CoverbandConfidential, and Twitter @CoverbandConfid. If you have any questions, please email us at coverbandconfidential@gmail.com, and consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/CoverbandConfidential. And for more info, check out www.coverbandconfidential.com.